So my grandmother, who was my nanny, she is in a lot of my images. In holding her ground, I was looking at the development of Winnipeg, which was the city that everyone went to in Manitoba. You see Model Ts in a streetcar, and you see this progress, the results of the colonial process. I felt like she's a strong, dynamic woman who's holding her ground despite what's going on around her.
Photography is about time travel in some ways. It's about freezing time, and then it's about like transitioning through time. And there is this thing about Indians, about Native Americans, that somehow we have been shot into the past, and that's where we stay.
When I was younger, I'd often look in, books about Native Americans and kind of look at the back of the index and look for Winnebago, and there was very little. And so it's like we weren't represented at all. And just in general, Native people are not, in popular culture.
When I started out in photography, we really saw so much of photography from the turn of the century. And then I grew up with this shoebox of photos, right, that were so magnificent that I didn't see anywhere else, of my grandmother at boarding school, of girls wearing dahlias in their hair, of, cowboys, of, men wearing the height of fashion at the time that were as Indigenous as they ever were, but they were just like living their modern lives at the time. I was thinking about these box TVs and the generation that I grew up in. And I realized that on the TVs, I could photo illustrate multiple images of how we had been depicted in the media. The TVs in the background and the Native people in the regalia in the front became this moment of tension between normally we see Native people in a landscape devoid of modern context, but here we have them in front of these kind of new ruins. It's just absurd of how we've been portrayed in the media and then what we look like in real life.
Right from the beginning of the history of photography, we have been producing photography. We have been there documenting what's important to us. And so I think that's what's really special about this project, is the opportunity to show just the diversity of interests Indigenous photographers have.
We will be able to see visually this legacy of photography. And we'll get to see how the narrative has changed and how it stayed the same, and just to see like the backgrounds change. The objects around the subjects change, the subjects themselves change, where people's minds were when they were taking photos. Were they focusing on people, or was the importance on maybe like documenting their sheep, or was it their grandmother, or, was it a self-portrait? Like, what was important when they were taking that picture that they wanted to communicate, and how has that changed and stayed the same?
Photography can really work very quickly to give people this incredible amount of context, of real lived experience, of real moments, of identity, of culture, of diversity, of continuum, right, through time.